Hey everyone, my talk today is called No Wallet, No Problem, How JSON Web Tokens Define the Future of Mobile Driver's License. Let's get into that. First off, I want you to envision this, and you might be familiar with this if you're a technologist or software engineer. You just finished this really big feature, the type of feature that you promised the sales team and product managers and customers that this will be done in 2 weeks, but you found yourself working on it for 2 months and it went on forever and ever. And now you're just finally done. And so you're like, I wanted this unwind, maybe movie and some wine. I know we're not able to talk back and forth since we're not in person, but just from your perspective, if you were going to go about this path, would you decide you want to order the wine online or pick it up from the store? Feel free to think about that for yourself or maybe write your answer in the comments. So, in this situation, maybe let's say you chose that you want to order the wine. And so, when you did that, the app where you ordered the wine said, hey, don't forget you need to make sure you show 2 items in exchange for the wine. So, give me some of your answers. What items do you think the app told you not to forget? What 2 things do you think you would need in order to get that wine? So I'll give you like the answer since I can't hear you back, but you would need money, of course, to be able to pay. So maybe you already paid that online or you will be paying in person when the delivery driver comes to you with a credit card or debit card. And then you will also need your ID. And of course, you forgot your ID, which is super annoying. Delivery drivers like, man, I don't have time for this. I can only spend a certain amount of time at each house. So you need to hurry up. So you run up the stairs. You're like, let me go get my ID before he leaves me. And he could leave, but he's whatever. I'll risk getting fired and I'll stay. I'm being a nice person. So, curious from you all, or just reflect on your own. Have you ever ordered any alcohol online and what was your experience like? I'll dive in deeper to me and who I am. My name is Rizal Scarlett. I am a staff developer advocate at a company called TBE. Yes, that is the real name. It's a company owned by Block. So Block owns Square, Cash App, Tidal, Afterpay, a couple of other companies, including TBD. And I don't necessarily drink alcohol, but I know some tips on purchasing booze with a JSON web token, and it'll tie into mobile driver's license. You'll see. If you wanted to connect with me, my handle is at Black Girl Bites on most social media platforms. So, we're going to talk about JSON web tokens. We'll talk about a specific kind of a JSON web token, how it works, how they're being used, the various challenges. We'll build that special type of JSON web token together. And because we're online, we won't be able to do the interactive fun and the swag, but that is okay. You'll still come away with learning something. In terms of JSON web tokens, the acronym that people normally use is JWT. I'm not sure from the audience if you've known about what JWTs are, but I'll go into them a little bit so you can understand. And also, I wanted to let you know sometimes you might hear someone say JOT or JWT. It just depends on how they prefer. I will say JWT. JWT or JSON Web Token is a secure way to share information between two parties online. So it will often look like this alphanumeric string, but you may notice it has 2 full stops to separate different parts of it, right? So the first part is the header, the second part is the payload, and then the third part is the signature. So as you can see, the header will tell us like what type of token, and I'll go to the next slide here. The header will tell us what type of token this is. So in this case, it's a JSON web token using this specific algorithm. And then the payload, which is the second part, will basically be the data that we're sending over. So in this case, we're sending over that the name is John Doe, and whatever IAT and sub is, we're sending over this string of numbers as well. And then the last part is also important. This part is the signature, and the signature is verifying that the data wasn't changed along the way. Now, you might be familiar with JSON Web Token if you've done any like authorization or authentication when you're building web applications. You might have seen like bearer token, and that's oftentimes a JSON Web Token. Not all the time, but sometimes. Now, people often get confused with this, so I just want to give people a quick tidbit. People sometimes get confused if a JSON Web Token is tamper-proof or tamper evident. So let's figure it out together, right? Tamper proof means that something is designed to completely prevent unauthorized access or changes. So that means you can't make any changes if you don't have authority to. However, tamper evidence says, all right, you can make some changes. It shows clear signs that any unauthorized access or changes have occurred. So you can make changes, but it will tell on you if you made those changes. So we're going to go ahead and try this out, see how this works. So I'm going to copy this JSON web token. And we're going to go to jwt.io. And this is a website that I like. It basically shows us the encoded and decoded version of a JSON web token. And let me zoom out just a bit so we can see it better. But this is a website that Auth0 crafted, and I would really like it. If we paste this JSON web token in, we can see here on the left side, the encoded version, and then it gets decoded on the right side. Oh, cool. It's a JSON web token using this specific algorithm, which is cool, right? The EDD. And then it has some information in it, right? It tells us, oh, the name in here or the data we're sending over is the name's Alice Smith. The completion date is June 2024, June 18, 2024, expertise level beginner. So that's some of the data we're sending over. And then it shows us the signature to verify that it hasn't been changed along the way. But let's say I'm like, let me see if I could try to change the data. I don't know what some of these letters are, but I'm going to be hacking my way in. And maybe I don't want it to say Alice Smith. Maybe I want it to say Rizal. So I'm going to try to delete some letters and type Rizal. Oh, wow. We see that the data, the payload that was being sent over is now looking a little weird. We having different characters in different languages and question marks. It's giving wingdings from Microsoft Word. So looking back at that experience and how things change, do we think that JSON web tokens are tamper evident or tamper? And the answer here is that they're tamper evident. And the reason I say this is because I was able to change and edit it, but it showed clear signs that changes had occurred. Okay, so now I want to talk to you very quickly about the W3C. What this stands for, if you aren't familiar, that stands for the World Wide Web Consortium. So the creator of the World Wide Web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, he also helped to form the W3C. And this is a group of groups, a group of working groups that are deciding different standards for the web. So they're setting standards for how we're going to write CSS on the web, how we're going to approach accessibility, and so on and so forth. That way we're all on the same page. There's also a working group for folks focused on digital identity. As we're moving to a more digital state, and as things are getting more and more advanced in terms of digital, we're also having this option or this reality where we don't just prove our identity in physical format, we'll have to also do it in the digital format. So there's people coming together to think about that. So they've come up with a specific standard called verifiable credentials, and I will describe this for folks as a special JSON web token. So verifiable credentials, officially, they're these digital proofs used to confirm specific facts about individuals, organizations, or entities. And I like to expand on this a little bit more just for people to understand. There are basically digital representations of paper documents. So like a digital version of your ID, degree, driver's license, health insurance card. And so here's an example, right? Auth0, they do a lot with verifiable credentials as well as TBD. Or they are experimenting a lot with it. And here's like a little prototype they made. They're like, this could be a verifiable credential for an educational one, for a diploma, right? Proving that Hannah Hurwitz got her diploma in electrical engineering. She graduated with honors on June 15th, 2019. This will expire in 2025, March 1st. And she got this in the United States, and it came from Socrates University. So that's just a little example, right? And the way it will work is it'll be a verifiable credential that gets stored in your phone's wallet, kind of like where you store like your debit card or your gym membership or a ticket to a basketball game in your Apple Pay wallet or your Google Pay wallet, your verifiable credential could live there as well. And at the end of the day, many verifiable credentials, not all, but many of them are just cryptographically signed JSON web tokens. Some of them are using CBOR, which stands for Concise Binary Object Representation. It really depends on the company and the purpose of that verifiable credential. But we'll talk in terms of JSON web tokens because that's the focus today. So I wanted to let you all know, remember that example where I was talking about ordering alcohol online? Angie Jones actually did this. I don't drink alcohol, but my boss, Angie Jones, she actually told me about this and did a talk about this, and my mind was blown. She actually paid and got alcohol online by showing her mobile driver's license on her phone. So she didn't have her physical ID, showed it on her phone. And behind the scenes, that technology behind the scenes of a mobile driver's license is a verifiable credential. So I'm curious for anyone in the audience. I wish I could see your response, but I'm curious who has a mobile driver's license and who doesn't. And we can take a look at the states in the US right now and Canada that are working on mobile driver's license or implementing them. So the ones in the purple are the ones that are like we have mobile driver's license, we like it, or they're like experimenting with it and stuff like that. The ones in the green are more in this attempt to execute legislative study or activity. So they're like, maybe this will be something that can work for us. We're going to look into it legally with our governments. And then the ones in the gray, like my state here, womp womp, they're not even thinking about it, which sucks. But I just like to look at, or there's no information available, but I just like to look at this just to see the progress that's happening in North America for adoption of mobile driver's license. So we see that mobile driver's license, or at least I hope we've seen that mobile driver's license are convenient in some way. In addition to, they're just in your phone's wallet and you can pay for and buy some alcohol with it. We saw that educational diploma as well. And I think another benefit there in terms of convenience is, let's say your school shut down, maybe due to natural disaster, or they just didn't have enough money to go on. Like, these are all realistic situations that do happen. And your job wants to call and say, ask for proof if you really want there, but there's no one to call. There's no one to ask proof of. So you have this verifiable credential that can withstand the test of time, withstand that natural disaster or whatever. It's in your phone, easy to prove, makes your background check process go easier. So there's that convenience layer. But there's also the option or the idea that there's selective disclosure, this feature of selective disclosure with verifiable credentials. And you don't know what it is, but I'll explain it to you. So I don't know how many people here have watched You on Netflix, but it's centered around this guy named Joe, who's essentially a stalker. He's very in-depth stalker. And I can just imagine if Joe was a bouncer at a club or just checking your ID for a bar, he would easily just memorize your address on your ID and everything. And so we end up going to bars and clubs and giving away more information than we need to. We don't know how many Joes are out there that are just like consuming information about us and potentially breaching our privacy. But they really don't need that information. They don't need our address. They don't need even our full name. They just need to know that we are truly over the age of 21. So there's this feature called selective disclosure where you only disclose the necessary information that the verifier is looking for. So here's an example. Here, this is from a different company that uses verifiable credentials, but this is a verifiable credential passport, right? Or a passport in the format of a verifiable credential. And what this person is revealing is their name, Preet Patel, their date of birth, June 28, 1989, and their gender, they're male. But they're not revealing their birth country, how long they've been a resident, their identifier, how long this is valid until, because that information in whatever situation they're in is not required. So it says only the required information from the credential is shared. So that's one feature that's really cool about verifiable credentials, where you could say, I don't want to share anything that they actually don't need to know. We're on a need to know basis. All right. So the flow of verifiable credential looks like this. First off, you need to know the three roles that get played in the flow. So you have an issuer. That's the legal organization or entity that created and issued and signed the VC. So not just anyone is just making VCs up about you or verifiable credentials up about you. It's usually someone that is trusted, an organization that is trusted. And then you might have, let's say, the Department of Motor Vehicles, a passport office, a college, stuff like that is what's trusted. Then you'll have the holder or the subject, which is who the verifiable credential is about. And then you have the verifier. That's the person who, or the organizations that's requesting proof. Maybe it's your job requesting proof that you did get that educational degree, or maybe it's the bartender, the delivery app driver that's saying, hey, we want to make sure you're over 21, so we're not actually giving you alcohol when it's not legally okay. So here's like how it would go. Let's say you go to the DMV. This is your trusted issuer that would be able to prove that, yes, you're over the age of 21. Then you would ask the DMV, hey, or the DMV would create a verifiable credential for you stating you're over the age of 21. The DMV will digitally sign the verifiable credential, which will convert the verifiable credential into a JSON web token. This way, it's tamper evident. People can't tamper with it. No one can go in and edit it and say, oh, I'm changing it, because it'll have proof that it was changed. And then you store that JSON web token in your phone. You show it to the verifiable credential to the bartender. The bartender scans the VC and programmatic checks then occur. So that the bartender would be the verifier, and they have some checks in the background checking, is this verifiable credential expired? This come from a issuer we trust? Does this have the information that we're looking for? Is this person actually over the age of 21? Things like that. So there's those programmatic checks in the background, and maybe the bartender sees like a Boolean true or false check mark, depending on how the system's set up. Now, I did talk about alcohol as a use case for this, but there's so many additional use cases that I found interesting. So I'll just share a couple with you. One is the pharmaceutical supply chain. Now, if there's any pharmacist on listening in, I am dumbing this down. I'm simplifying this. I'm not into the pharmaceutical industry, but from what I've learned, to stay stocked, pharmacies exchange medicine with each other. So let's say Walgreens says, oh man, we ran out of Xanax. And they hit up CVS, and CVS, yeah, we can send that to you. But there's a whole process involved of, okay, first we need to make sure that the medicine they're sending over, if it's legit, we need to make sure the pharmacist is legit, and we need to make sure the pharmacy is legit, right? So this process is pretty long, tedious, annoying. And I recently talked to a CEO of a company that's focused on verifiable credentials called Sverity. And what they've done is they've enabled pharmacists to be able to use verifiable credentials to prove that medicine is real, to prove that the pharmacist is real and the pharmacy, speeding up and streamlining the process, which I thought was cool. There's also the Content Authenticity Initiative. And this is a really cool thing as well. Right now, we know in the world a lot of things are AI generated. It's really hard to prove, is this image or video real? Is this content real? I don't know. So with content credentials, you're able to add this little watermark, or have this little watermark, this little eye on your images, hover over it, and you'll be able to get information about the image. So you'll be able to see, oh, this was produced by Jane Smith, and this exists and lives on her accounts, and some other information maybe. And if it wasn't produced by her, it'll give information that, oh, this is actually an AI generated image, just bringing more transparency to what we see online. And the Content Authenticity Initiative is so cool. A couple of companies are working on this together, like Adobe, as we've seen, Nikon, Sony, Microsoft, even some news stations like Fox and all that. So I'm really excited to see how that continues to progress. I also recently talked to this to a native tribe that's basically using verifiable credentials to basically help people within that tribe establish their identity and their businesses through verifiable credentials, just proving that, oh yeah, this is who I am, this is my business, and they're doing this for what is called special economic zones. And then I think this is last but not least. Yeah, last but not least is the European digital identity wallet. Europe is going all in on embracing verifiable credentials. And what they're doing is they're coming out with a digital identity wallet so that all citizens, residents, businesses have the option, not required, but they have the ability to store any documents that they have digitally in their phone. So this is really cool, from their diplomas to insurance to any travel documents, just making their lives a little bit more convenient and securing their privacy. So I want you to think of any ideas of what you might basically use a verifiable credential for. And while you do, I'm going to go ahead and try to build a verifiable credential with you. If I can exit this. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move over here we go. So right now I'm going to use, and I'll zoom in just a little bit more. I'm going to use the Web5 SDK. So they have TBD made a couple of SDKs. This one's called Web5 Credentials. And what we're going to do is build a verifiable credential of our own. There's other SDKs you can use, but this one is cool as well. So first, I'm going to go ahead and run this. And what this does is it's setting up something called a decentralized identifier for us. This is our unique identifier that proves who we are. The URI is simply just a string, but there's other cryptographic methods that are going on behind the scenes here that I'm not going to take too much time to explain, but just know that it's basically saying, hey, this decentralized identifier is connected to Rizal. Okay, next thing we want to do is we want to actually create our verifiable credential. So we can say something like const await verifiable credential dot create, and then we're going to put in the type. And we can say this is a workshop attendee credential. We're going to say who issued it. So this is a little weird and unorthodox. Probably not a lot of people would do this, or there's not a lot of use cases for this, but we're going to create a self-signed verifiable credential. So I'm going to be the issuer and the subject of the verifiable credential, meaning I'm going to create the verifiable credential, issue it, and give it to myself. Again, so the subject, so this is my identifier. So the issuer and the subject is me. And this is just for demonstration purposes. Then we'll put an expiration date as well. And maybe we want to add in some data about who this is about. Oops, if I could type. So we're going to say, let's say maybe name. And my name is Rizal Scarlett. We can say the location. I am in Massachusetts. We can say conference, Conf42, JavaScript. JavaScript 2024. And then event date. Today is actually the 10th or the October 25th. And issuer name is Rizal. So I received it and I got it. I sent it. Okay, so when we see what we get printed out, it's simply just going to be JSON. So let's go ahead and console log this. Console log VC. So here we see verifiable credential, Rizel, all of this is just some JSON. But what we want to do, here's the magic here. We want to sign the verifiable credential with our unique identifier, and that's going to change this into a JSON web token. So we're going to go ahead and run it. There we go. We have our signed verifiable credential. That's a JSON web token. We can go and evaluate this just so you know I'm not lying to you. Let's make this a little smaller. And I'm going to paste this in and see if the data that I wrote is in here. Let's make this. There we go. Here we go. We have my name, Rizal Scarlett, Massachusetts, the conference that we're at. Oop, I messed this up. The conference that we're at, the event date, etc. All right, we got to see that this is a real JSON web token. Let's go back to our code and we can present this So let's say we present to a verifier and we want to save it in our phone. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this over. And this is like a demonstration. So we'll paste this in. We'll say present our credential. And we can check the console. Whoa, super huge. I made this big so you all will be able to see it. Cool. All right. And what we got back, I'll zoom in a little bit more on this side, is our verifiable credential that I'm storing in my phone. Where I'm like, okay, this is Rizal, Conf42, event date. I think I put the 24th of October when I met 25th or whatever. That's cool. And then I can switch this verifiable credential to prove that, yeah, I attended a workshop and I want to get swag back for it or whatever the case is. This is the idea around verifiable credentials, how they work, how JSON web tokens are, that technology behind the scenes. None of this is something new, or it's not using new technology, but it's creating a new experience for everyone. So I will encourage you, if you would like to dig deeper into stuff like this, to go to developer.tbd.website and you can learn more about how verifiable credentials work. What are they? We have this awesome video on it, how to issue verifiable credentials, and more. It's really good documentation, good reading to understand and learn how this works. I want to thank Conf42 for giving me the platform to speak, and I want to thank you as well for listening.